Jaya new home, beautiful abode, to have wonderful Sadhu Sangha association of devotees. So congratulations again for acquiring a very beautiful place so that we can have nice, wonderful discussion in a very safe way. So today is our discussion on the most glorious Purushottam-mas. So to invoke nice experience for all of us in Purushottam-mas, we'll read chapter 15 first. So I'll just read the translations. So those of you who have, you can get, or you can get on your phone. Maybe there's about 20 of us here, so 20 verses are there, so we'll read. So I'll start. This is chapter 15, verse 1, and then we'll go around. The Supreme Personality of Godhead said, "It is said that there is an imperishable banyan tree that is its roots upward and its branches down, and whose leaves are the Vedic hymns. One who knows this tree is the knower of the Vedas." So let's read verse 2.
The branches of this tree extend downward and upward, nourished by the three modes of material nature. The twigs are the object of the senses. This tree also has roots going down, and these are bound to the fruit of actions of human society.
The real form of this tree cannot be perceived in this world. No one can understand where it ends, where it begins, or where its foundation is. But with determination, one must cut down this strongly rooted tree with the weapon of detachment. Thereafter, one must speak that place from which, having gone, one never returns, and there surrender to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, from whom everything began and from whom everything has extended since time immemorial.
Those who are free from false prestige, illusion, and false association, who understand the eternal, who are done with material lust, who are free from the dualities of happiness and distress, and who, unbewildered, know how to surrender unto the Supreme Person, attain to the eternal kingdom.
The supreme abode of mind is not illuminated by the sun or moon, nor by fire or electricity. Those who reach it never return to the material world.
The living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they are struggling very hard with their six senses, which includes the mind.
The living entity in the material world carries his different conception of life from one body to another, as the air carries aromas. Thus he takes one kind of a body and again quits it to take another.
The living entity, thus taking another gross body, obtains a certain type of ear, eye, tongue, nose, and sense of touch, which are grouped about the mind. He thus enjoys a particular set of sense objects.
The foolish cannot understand how a living entity can quit his body, nor can they understand what sort of body he enjoys under the spell of the modes of nature. But one whose eyes are trained in knowledge can see all this.
The endeavoring transcendentalists who are situated in self-realization can see all this clearly. But those whose minds are not developed and who are not situated in self-realization cannot see what is taking place, though they may try.
The splendor of the sun which dissipates the darkness of this whole world comes from me, and the splendor of the moon and the splendor of fire are also from me.
I enter into each planet, and by my energy they stay in orbit. I become the moon and thereby supply the juice of life to all vegetables.
I am the fire of digestion in the bodies of all living entities, and I join with the air of life, outgoing and incoming, to digest the four kind of food stuff.
I am seated in everyone's heart, and from me comes the remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. By all the Vedas, I am to be known. Indeed, I am the compiler of Vedanta, and I am the knower of the Vedas.
There are two classes of beings, the fallible and the infallible. In the material world, every living entity is fallible, and in the spiritual world, every living entity is infallible.
Besides these two, there is the greatest living personality, the Supreme Soul, the imperishable Lord Himself, who has entered the three worlds and is maintaining them.
You can read 15, 18. Page 611.
58.
18.
8, yeah, 15, 6, 1.
Because I am transcendental, beyond both the fallible and the infallible, and because I am the greatest, I am celebrated both in the world and in the Vedas as Supreme Person.
Whoever knows me as the Supreme Personality of Godhead without doubting is the knower of everything. He therefore engages himself in full devotional service to me, O son of Bharata.
We'll all read the last verse together. This is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures, O sinless one, and it is disclosed by me. Whoever understands this by being wise, and his endeavors will know perfection. How many of us want perfection? All of us, right? So Krishna is saying this is the most confidential part of the Vedic scriptures. And what is the title of this chapter? Yoga of the Supreme Person. So this is Yoga of Purushottama. So who is Purushottama? Krishna. So this month is Purushottam Mas. How many have observed Purushottam Mas previously in some way? A few of you? Okay. And how many have not heard anything about Purushottam Mas, what its meaning is previously? Some of you? Okay. Okay, so now I know how. So we'll go into some detail on what is Purushottam Mas. Those of you who have heard will be able to relish again. Those of you who have not will learn something new, and we can experience the glories of this most wonderful Purushottam Mas. So, how many of us would like to be free from all of our sinful reactions? How many of us would like to be free from our material attachments? Most important question. How many of us would like to go back home, back to Godhead, to Goloka Vrindavan? How many of us want this very badly? Okay. So far we are unanimous on yeses. One more question. How many find it easy? Okay, no hands are up. Except for Varnita. Yes. So it's not so easy, right? So I want to take us back to an emotion we've had in the past. Surely in some point of your life, maybe at least for some of the adults, and probably children also, but for sure adults, at some point in our life, we have wanted to buy something. Maybe a phone, maybe a car, maybe a laptop, a microwave, something we have really badly wanted to buy. and we have been thinking about it and looking and finding, and then somehow out of the blue that exact product we want comes on sale 30% off. And how happy are we? We're most happy? We're ecstatic, right? Why we are so happy?
We got a deal.
We got a deal. That which we wanted, now we can get for less. And we are prepared maybe to pay full price because we wanted it so badly. But we become very enthusiastic. Now that sale has a certain time frame. It is starting on Monday and it'll end on Tuesday. What is the chances we'll forget that time frame of sale? Will we forget? No. And if we have busy time in those days, what will we do?
Make some time.
We'll make time. We'll make time. And why? Because we really want that. Right? So, that feeling of really wanting something and feeling very happy that now I'm getting it for a much less price. That is the experience we have when these sales come. They're very exciting for us, right? So, in spiritual life, Srila Prabhupada compares these very auspicious times of year, auspicious times of our life, like a sale, a store sale. Because when you go into a store with a sale, you can walk in with a little bit of money and walk out with lots of things. So he would say, like that, during these auspicious times like Purushottam Mas, like Kartik Mas, and other holy times, the different auspicious days of our calendar, when we do a little bit of devotional service, we actually acquire lots of progress, lots of success. So everybody was enthusiastically raising their hands, free from all of our sinful reactions, free from our material attachments, and booking our ticket back home, back to Godhead. So this Purushottam Mas is like one of those great sales. It is a very auspicious time that Krishna himself has engineered. Only the shopkeeper can create the sale. Consumers don't create the sale, right? You don't go and say, okay, I'm going to make a sale now and then buy it. No, we don't get to pick. Who gets to pick? The owner of the store. So, Krishna, as the supreme controller, has great love and compassion for all of us. And so, he has arranged for different times to be especially auspicious and especially powerful for us to practice devotional service. Of course, our goal and our endeavor is to practice devotional service 24/7. And for the pure devotee, the Mahabhagavat, they find auspiciousness in all times. There is no ups and downs. But for us conditioned souls, who have maybe a long way to go, at least speaking for myself, Krishna, out of his great compassion, has arranged these times of advanced acceleration so we can make great progress forward quickly with relatively little effort. So one with intelligence, when it comes to know about these sale times, do they buy during the sale? What do they do during the sale time? What happens on Black Friday?
Everybody goes crazy.
Everybody goes crazy. They make the plan for what to do on Black Friday weeks in advance. And how much research we do, and think and plan, and you go here, I'm going there, we'll meet there, like this, for one sale to acquire some material goods. So if we apply some of that enthusiasm in this spiritual sale of Purushottam Mas, we'll make far, far superior advancement. So we should approach this time with that type of enthusiasm and be very grateful that Krishna has arranged such a wonderful opportunity for us to make very significant progress in devotional service. And we know on Black Friday, if somebody says, hey, come to my house and relax and enjoy, what will we do?
Some other time.
Some other time. I'm busy. What am I busy doing? Shopping. So for the next roughly 28 days, I pray that we'll all be also very busy. Shopping. Shopping for Krishna Prema. Shopping for pure devotional service. Because if we remain enthusiastic during this time, like we are enthusiastic in so many of our material endeavors, we'll actually make great progress in devotional service. So please, let us see today how we can make great plans to be sincere in practicing devotional service. So now, what is this Purushottam Mas? So, many of us know it is called by many names, Adhik Mas, the extra month. And why it's an extra month? It's simply a calibration between the lunar calendar and the solar calendar. So the solar calendar completes its orbit in a fixed amount of days, and the lunar orbit is completed in also a fixed amount of days, and there's some differential. So every few years, in order to bring the lunar calendar and solar calendar to the same starting spot again, an extra month is added in our lunar calendar. And we know our Vedic calendar follows the moon calendar. Right? So this happens every 32 months, 16 days, and the day is broken up into segments of 24 minutes. There are 60 such segments that comprise the day. They're called gadis. And so on the 16th day and 8th gadi, there is this Adhik Mas starts, this extra month. So this month now has a very important position, and that we'll hear. So in the Padma Puran, this whole history is given about the different aspects of it. So we'll speak a little bit from there. And we'll narrate a little bit from a pastime when Sutta Goswami had reached the forest of Naimisharanya. And there many sages had been assembled, and seeing Sutta Goswami, they welcomed him very nicely, gave him a nice Vyasasan to sit, and said, please tell us, you have traveled everywhere. What is the best of the best of what you have heard in devotional service? What is the most perfect things that you have heard? So Sutta Goswami said, well, I was very fortunate because I have just come from Hastinapur. And there, Parikshit Maharaj was assembled with many, many other sages. And Srila Shukadev Goswami had come and began to speak on the perfections of devotional service. And he narrated Srimad Bhagavatam to Parikshit Maharaj. And I have heard that, and I am very enthused and enlivened hearing about the wonderful and most perfect pastimes. So the sages inquired from Sutta Goswami, so please share with us, what did you hear? So Sutta Goswami has a lots to pick from, right? Lots of things he can pick from. So he begins to speak about how this Purushottam Mas came into being. So this story, he is narrating a story of when Narada Muni went to Badarikashram. And there, Narada Muni was inquiring from Lord Narayan Rishi. Now Narada Muni, he has one job. What is his job?
To spread the holy name.
Spread the holy names. To engage the conditioned souls in devotional service. To chant the holy names of the Lord. To detach from the material. Now I asked earlier, how many find detaching from their material desires easy? And nobody raised their hand. But everybody raised their hand and they want to, right? Be detached. So Narada Muni is asking Lord Narayan Rishi that everywhere I go, people are so attached to their material endeavors that they have completely forgotten the goal of life. I've forgotten everything. So what is it that we, he's speaking as himself, as renunciates and also as householders, what is something that they can do, the best that they can do to achieve the perfection of life? So now that's a pretty powerful question, right? What's the best of the best that you can do? So Lord Narayan Rishi can give so many different things. But he says, actually, if you want the best of the best, one should observe this Purushottam Mas. So Narada Muni is, what is this Purushottam Mas? So he begins to ask many questions. What is it? How should one observe it? What should one do? How should they bathe? What mantras they should chant? He asks many, many questions. And so, because now he's intrigued. This is something best of best. But I've not heard about it. So, Lord Narayan Rishi then begins to explain a story of Krishna and how he explained the glories of Purushottam Mas. So we have three layers of this discussion. Right? Sutta Goswami is explaining to the sages in Naimisharanya, relaying this conversation between Narada Muni and Narayan Rishi. And Narayan Rishi is explaining the story of now what Krishna is going to explain. Okay, so now we're in the third level of this story. So, Krishna, being the all-loving Supreme Personality of Godhead, once went to visit the Pandavas, who were near wrapping up their exile, but were still in the exile for the 14 years, and they were in the Kamyaka forest. And there, Krishna observed a very desperate situation, condition of the Pandavas and Mother Draupadi. They were emaciated, they were living in a very, meager means, and Krishna, being Bhakta Vatsala, the caretaker and lover of his devotees, became very hurt and upset. And then he became very, very angry. And Krishna has so much love for his devotees that when he sees his devotees suffering, it actually pains him very much. When Krishna is seeing the conditioned souls suffering so much in separation from their eternal relationship, devotional service, it actually pains Krishna very, very much. He is lamenting. Just like a mother or father, they can tolerate their own discomforts, but when their child is not well or suffering some difficulty, that is intolerable. So like that, Krishna was feeling great angst at seeing the desperate condition of the Pandavas. And so he became very angry and was immediately ready to destroy Duryodhana and the whole planet if need be. That much he became. But Arjuna, being the great friend of Krishna, offered very wonderful prayers and pacified Krishna. And so Krishna's mood comes back to his neutral state. And then he says, I'm going to speak to you about this Purushottam Mas. Because Krishna is now going to explain why they are struggling. Why they are struggling. And the main reason they are struggling is because Purushottam Mas has passed and they have not observed this Purushottam Mas. So Krishna then begins to tell a story of how this Purushottam Mas came into being and how it became this very powerful and potent month to perform devotional service. So all the months of the year, they are known by a particular name. And like everything in the spiritual world, it is personified. So when we have the rivers, right? The river Ganges, there is Mother Ganges. There is a personified person representing. We have, all the different planetary systems. They're all personified. So the months are also personified. So this extra month also had a person. But she was in great despair because everybody was treating this extra month as inauspicious. Because nobody knew, there was no presiding deity for this month. There wasn't even a name for it, so people were calling it Malamas. They were calling it Stool Month. They were, really disparagingly speaking about this extra month. Nobody would hold any auspicious activities. Nobody would get married during this month. Nobody would enter into a new home, start a new career. You find the auspicious times. So anytime this month got, everything would stop. And everybody was thus cursing this month. So this Malamas, she was lamenting that, I have been given this responsibility, but I am completely left alone. Nobody is caring for me. Everybody is ridiculing me, chastising. So she is lamenting like this. So she goes, to the ultimate shelter of all, and that is the Supreme Lord. So she goes to Lord Vishnu in Vaikuntha Loka, and she is crying and crying and crying and explaining how she has no husband, she has no protector, she has no name, she has no good qualities, and everybody is disparaging her and all this, and she is just crying and crying. And Lord Vishnu is saying, what is wrong? Nobody cries in Vaikuntha. This is Vaikuntha, free of misery. Why you are miserable? And she just continues on, and then she faints, and Garuda, is fanning her, and finally she comes about, and Lord Vishnu says, okay, come with me. And so Lord Vishnu comes off of his Simhasana, and he takes Malamas. He said, let's go see Krishna in Goloka Vrindavan. Let's go see Krishna. So they are walking towards Goloka Vrindavan. And they coming in a very, very effulgent place. So bright. So they, close their eyes. She closes her eyes. She cannot see. She's just walking behind Lord Vishnu. And they enter the gates of Goloka Vrindavan. And then Lord Vishnu sees Krishna seated with, amidst all the gopis. And Lord Vishnu offers his obeisances. And he tells Mama, you offer your obeisances also? So she offers. But she's still crying and crying and crying. And Krishna is saying, who is this lady with you? Why she is crying? Now you're in Goloka Vrindavan. This is like the utmost of bliss. Nobody cries except for transcendental tears in Goloka Vrindavan. Why she is crying? So Lord Vishnu explains the very desperate situation of Malamas and explains why she is crying. And so Lord Krishna says to Vishnu, you have done a very nice thing, a very good thing. And because you have brought her to me for help, I'll help. And then Lord Krishna says, I'm going to read. Many of you must have seen this pamphlet that was sent out. This was written by Srimati Mataji from Vrindavan. She's organized everything we're speaking is just from here. A very very nicely explaining all of this. So Krishna says that he says, you have accepted this Malamas. I will also accept her. I shall make this poor month just like me in quality, in fame, opulence, realization, success, and in giving benediction to devotees, equal to Krishna. This month will become equally potent to me. I am bestowing all of my divine qualities in this abused month, named after me. Who is Purushottama? Krishna. We just read, right, from chapter 15, Purushottama. And this is called Purushottam Mas. Named after me, this month will be famous as Purushottam month in the world. He says, now that she is imbued with my qualities, I myself will become the husband and protector of this Purushottam month. See what benediction she received. And being equal to me, this month will be the master of all other months. Now this month will become worshipable by one and all. Everyone should pay obeisances to her. Everyone should worship her. This month is equally as powerful as me to give any type of benediction to its observer. I am making this month desire-free, unlike other months which are full of some desire or other. Now, this is the wonderful benediction Krishna gives to this month, to the observer, one who respects this month. The worshipper of this month will be able to burn all past sinful reactions to ashes. And after enjoying a blissful life in the material realm, he will return back to Godhead. So remember the 3 questions I asked in the very beginning? How many would like to be free of their sinful reactions, free of their material attachments, and return back home to Godhead? So Krishna says, this is Krishna the Supreme Lord saying, the worshipper of this month shall achieve these 3 things. Then he goes on to say more further, my Goloka is unattainable to the performer of austerities, the Mahatmas engaged in pious activities, to people who maintain celibacy, and to those who fast their whole life's duration. And Goloka Vrindavan is not attainable. But just by observing Purushottam month and becoming a devotee, one can easily cross over this material ocean and return back to Godhead. Observance of this Purushottam month is the best of all austerities. So Krishna himself has bestowed great benedictions to those who observe and follow this Purushottam month. Krishna said this month is equally potent to me, the master of all months, equally potent in giving benedictions. And what is the greatest benediction we can acquire? I heard all of them. Going back to God. Krishna prema. Pure devotional service. So this is the prayer we make in this month. And Krishna will fulfill through Purushottam Mas. So there are kind of 3 best activities, primary activities, to be performed during this month of Purushottam Mas. So how to observe, that was one of Dharma. And primary is to be chanting the holy names of the Lord with great quality. So quality japa is the primary and principal activity in this Purushottam Mas. And we're going to see this in another pastime we'll narrate here in a few minutes. How potent chanting of the holy names is during this Purushottam Mas. 2, taking bath in the holy rivers. Very, very potent. one who takes bath in the holy rivers during this month of Purushottam Mas is equivalent to having taken bath in a holy river for 12,000 years. So today we will also take bath in a holy river. Stay tuned. And finally, giving charity. So giving charity is a third activity that one can do to very nicely observe Purushottam Mas. Also, one can take to some austerities, some vows, like we do in Kartik. We make some vows, so we can take some vows to increase our chanting, to increase our reading, to maybe abstain from some foodstuffs, whatever we can do, principally around our quality of chanting, rising early, making a concerted effort to concentrate on the holy names of the Lord, chanting with great quality. These sorts of things are great vows. So we'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit. Now we talked about the glories of observing this month. But also Krishna goes on to say, an unfortunate, ignorant man who does not perform any japa, does not give any charity, does not pay respect to Lord Shri Krishna and his devotee, does not behave properly to brahmanas, makes enmity with others, and who blasphemes the Purushottam month will go to hell for an unlimited period. So while we have great fortune to honor and observe Purushottam Mas, we must be very careful also not to dishonor. Because we know, if Krishna has taken, very great care and love for Purushottam Mas now. So like anyone, if somebody dishonors someone we love, we become very upset. So we should also be very careful to honor and to observe this Purushottam Mas. Right? So there are many other different pastimes that have taken place. Krishna goes on to explain the position of Draupadi. Some bit of an enigma why she had to go through so many difficulties in her life, and she also has a bit of a awkward position, having 5 husbands, right? And now being exiled in the forest and being disrobed in the court of Duryodhana, and so many different difficulties. So Krishna goes on to explain why that happened. So he explains that there was a Brahmana by the name of Medavi Brahmana, and they had a daughter. But as she was born, or soon after, his wife, her mother, passed away. So he was basically raising her. And he was raising her, but he was not, so accustomed to all the things that are required to raise her. And as she was becoming of marriageable age, completely, forgot and carried on. And she was growing older and older, and ultimately he passed away. And she was unmarried, and now she had no father, she had no husband, she had no brother, and so she was left in this very precarious position and very moroseful and lamenting. And once Durvasa Muni came to her ashram and said, why are you lamenting? And she was, received Durvasa Muni very nicely, and she explained her condition, what had happened. And Sri Durvasa Muni thought and said, okay, coming up in just a little bit of time is Purushottam Mas. You observe this Purushottam Mas very sincerely, and all of your troubles will go away. As Krishna said, one will burn all the sins of their past life. One will enjoy materially and go back home to Godhead. All 3. So Durvasa Muni said, you observe Purushottam Mas. Now this daughter of Medavi Brahmana thought, this Durvasa Muni is tricking me. Who considers this Mala Mas to be auspicious? It's a stool month. Nobody does anything, and he's telling me it's glorious. He's trying to make me look foolish by performing some religious activities during this month. She did not know. And so she blasphemed this Purushottam Mas. And Durvasa Muni became very angry. We know making Durvasa Muni angry is a risky business. But Durvasa Muni also controlled, because Medavi Brahmana was his friend. So he said, I'll not curse you, but you should understand that your offense to Purushottam Mas, you will have to pay for that. Nothing I can do about that. So he left. And as soon as Durvasa Muni left, she lost all of her beauty, her energy, everything, because of this offense. And she began to get into a very desperate condition. And so she decided to go and do austerities to Lord Shiva. And Lord Shiva is Ashutosh, easily pleased. So she thought, let me go and perform. So she performed very intense austerity, thousands of years, sitting in fire, submerged in ice cold water in the winter, and 9,000 years she performs intense austerity. And Lord Shiva comes and sees her. All the demigods are becoming nervous. Anytime somebody does some very powerful austerities, they worry someone might acquire some boon that could take away their power. So they send Lord Shiva quickly. So Lord Shiva goes, and this daughter, this Medavi Brahmana's daughter, says, "Oh, Lord Shiva, you're here." And he asks, "I'm very pleased with your austerity. Please ask me some boon." She says, "I really want a husband. I need a husband. Please give me a husband. I need a husband. Please, just a husband." He says, "Okay, let it be." And she says, "You'll have 5 husbands." No, I just want one. No, you asked 5 times. She was very excited. She asked 5 times. And she said, "No, what kind of boon is this? This is a curse. This is not appropriate. This is against our custom." Lord Shiva said, "No, you will have 5 husbands." And also reminded her of her offense to Purushottam Mas. So, after some time, this Brahmani, left her body. And King Drupad was performing a yajna. And in this yajna appeared a girl, baby girl. And this was that same daughter from Medavi Brahmana. And they named her Draupadi, the very famous Draupadi. And so, Krishna explains that, Draupadi, you have experienced this very difficult time, including being disrobed by the hands of Dushashan in the royal court. But I saved you from that. Why? Because you surrendered to me. You called out to me. And so I saved you from that. But these difficulties you have all faced is because of missing the opportunity to observe Purushottam Mas. And so Krishna explained to them. So Krishna left, and thereafter Yudhishthira Maharaj knew the exact time when Purushottam Mas was going to start, and from there they observed, and very quickly their exile was over after observing Purushottam Mas, and again regained their great position. So we see both sides of the equation. And I'll tell one more story because it's related to Lord Jagannath in some way. And of course we have wonderful Lord Jagannath Rath Yatra coming up. So in Purushottam month, the glories is also explained in the pastime of this king Hadadanva. So Hadadanva was a great king. He was the son of Chitradanva. And Hadadanva, as a young boy, was a great student of Shastra. He was trained very nicely and was learning all of the Vedas, and in Gurukul was an expert student, great qualities and really attractive nature and character. And so when he returned from Gurukul, his father, the king, had become advanced age and said, okay, I'm going to now go to the forest and begin to meditate on Lord Hari. So you now take over the kingdom. So Haladanva began to rule the kingdom, and he was ruling at a very wonderful queen. He had 4 nice sons, a daughter. He had an unrivaled kingdom. So he began to think and sit back and, wow, I really have the life. What else I could want? Kingdom, no enemies, family, everything is bliss. So some few days later, the king went out on a hunting expedition, and he went to chase after a deer, and he was chasing and went to the next forest and got separated from his army. And after chasing, he became thirsty, and he saw one lake, pond, there of some fresh water. So he began to drink some water and sit under a tree. And sitting under the tree, the king heard a parrot, and the parrot was speaking a verse. There are materially attached men all around, and they have lost their understanding of the real goal of life. There are materially attached people walking all along, and they have lost the real goal of life, and kept repeating this over and over again. And the king is like perplexed. Why this parrot is speaking like this to me? He could not understand. So he goes back to his palace, and then Valmiki Muni comes and to visit the king, and he begins to explain, the source of his confusion. He says, I heard this parrot saying this, I don't know what this is. So Valmiki Muni then just contemplates for a moment, and then tells the story of Haladanva's prior life. So he said that you were in your prior life a great Brahmana by the name of Sudeva. And you had a very, very wonderful wife. How wonderful? It was a daughter of Gautama Rishi. Gautami was your wife. And the two of you are living this ideal Grahastha life, setting a wonderful example. But you were lamenting that you did not have a son. And so after trying for so long, you thought, what is the purpose for me to live if I don't have a son? So in this way, you were prepared to even end your life. But then your very intelligent wife, is very well trained, coming in a great lineage, told you that no, if you want a son, you go worship the Supreme Lord, Lord Jagannath. So Sudeva realized, yes, I should go. And so he goes and performs intense worship of Lord Jagannath. And so for many, many thousand years, 4,000 years, performs great meditation on the Supreme Lord. And ultimately, Lord Vishnu comes and says, my dear Brahmana, you are so kind and so wonderful, and your prayers are so beautiful. I want to offer you some boon. So the Sudeva Brahmana asks, well, if you want to offer me a boon, I would like some son. I don't have a son. And Lord Vishnu looks. Says, sorry. You cannot have a son for another 7 lives. I'm sorry. Nothing I can do. And Sudeva, boom, just falls to the ground, completely devastated. He's gone. Gautami is crying, lamenting. And Garuda is witnessing this, and he's heartbroken. He says, do something. Please just give him the boon. Give him the boon. I cannot give. But I'll give you the empowerment to give. You see, Krishna is very merciful. But even more merciful than Krishna, his devotees. His devotees are always even more merciful, which is hard to imagine, than even So Garuda, empowered by Krishna, then offers the boon that you'll have a son. So of course the boon comes true and they have a son. And then some time passes and Devala Rishi comes and sees this son and says, very beautiful boy, very auspicious son. They had named him Shukadev, very great son. But I'm sorry to say he's going to die at a very young age. 12 years old, he's going to drown. What kind of news, how a parent would receive such news? Very devastating, so much effort to acquire the son, and now? So after some time, they sort of put away that knowledge and just kept enjoying the time with their son. But sure enough, turned 12, was swimming in one body of water and drowned. And the boys came and told, so Sudeva went and ran to recover the body of their son, put him on his lap and was just crying and crying and crying. And Gautami is there, and they're just chanting the holy names of the Lord. They knew no other solace but to just chant the holy names of the Lord. And like this, they were chanting and chanting and chanting and chanting. They're chanting, everything around them was being devastated. But they were just intensely chanting, not even asking for anything, just chanting the holy names of the Lord. And after some time, Lord Krishna comes to see them. And he sees this very, desperate situation. Asks what happened. This is what happened. And immediately gives life to their son. And says, I am very pleased with you. Your son will live for 12,000 years. And Sudeva, what happened? And Krishna explains, you don't know why I'm so pleased with you. Let me tell you why I'm so pleased with you. Even unknowingly, for 1 whole month you've been chanting the holy names of the Lord. And that happened to be the exact time of Purushottam month. During the whole of Purushottam month, you fasted the entire month and you chanted non-stop the holy names of the Lord. And for this great activity, you have pleased me very much. And thus, your great desire will be fulfilled. And so Sudeva Brahma regained the association of his son and was very gloriously living. And so Valmiki Muni is explaining to Haradhanva that same son that you had came back to you as this parent to remind you, yes, you have enjoyed materially, but now you need to obtain the last benediction of this Purushottam Mas, and that is to engage in devotional service. So the great benediction he got was not the kingdom, was not the great wife or 4 sons. It was the reminder that the real goal of life is to reawaken our relationship with the Supreme Lord. That is the greatest of all gifts we can get. And so his great son, Shukadev, came back. He had already been liberated, but came back to remind his father. And so Valmiki Muni is reminding or telling Haradhanva, this is what you should do. And so he quickly regained his focus and began practicing very sincere devotional service. All from the piety performed during this Purushottam Mas. So this month is very, very auspicious. Lord Narayan Rishi explains to Narada Muni also that just hearing about the glories of Purushottam Mas is as glorious as observing Purushottam Mas. So by hearing about it, one is getting many benefits for observing it. So just that single step is very beneficial. But now that we have heard about the glories, just like if we have heard about some great sale, will not miss it, will not let anything get in the way, will not be too busy by anything else. So during this month, we can try to set aside other non-essential activities and really double down our efforts. Take full advantage of this, as Prabhupada says, spiritual sale, and practice devotional service in the most sincere and earnest of ways, primarily centered around good quality chanting, reading of Srila Prabhupada's books, rendering of service, giving of charity, taking bath in the holy rivers, which I promised we were going to do. And in this way, we'll make perfection of observing Purushottam Mas and achieve freedom from all of our past sins, some material comforts, but most importantly, booking our ticket back home, back to Godhead, by observing the most glorious Purushottam Mas. So that is this wonderful opportunity we all have. So let us pray to Srila Prabhupada, Shri Radha Kunjviyai, Lord Jagannath Baldev Subhadamata, Srinath Balagopal, and Gornitai, that we may have some success in observing Purushottam Mas. Purushottam Mas ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Anantakoti Vaishnavinda ki jai. Any questions or comments?